Mm. The sandwich is a potbelly pizza melt. Okay. So Ovid's Metamorphoses is a collection of a bunch of Greek short stories, and it's essentially the Brothers Grimm fairy tale book that I have, but it's all the Greek shit. Okay. So the Greeks told these stories orally, and then Romans adopted these stories, and then again, Ovid adopted the Roman stories to make them even meaner. So they're like Greek stories, but it's a whole game of telephone that's happening to them, and it's I didn't know that Juno was the equivalent of Hera until I had to look it up, or until I realized that Hera was, the wife of Jupiter, which is which I knew was Zeus. If I were an English teacher, I would hand select a couple stories for people to choose from, and then I would do discussion groups about it. The story that I think Romeo and Juliet comes from, and that was actually really good. Not usually a fan of romances, but that I enjoyed that. You don't finish a thing these days, guys. I'm in such a transformatory point in my life right now. I'm undergoing a metamorphosis of my own. Okay, like calm down a little bit. All right, I know I said this year that we were ascending. We were going through all the. We already went through all the biblical epics. All right. Surprised I stuck to that. All right, like that. Like I'm thumbs up. I'm proud of myself for that. I really am. Now we're going through all the classical epics, and it's taken a lot longer. All right, but I realize with this, I not saying you don't have to finish it. If I were to come here and say, yeah, I finished it, I'd be lying. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm rambling on at this point. But it is kind of like the Brothers Grimm, right? I don't have to read every single one to get the gist that, like, I think I like Brothers Grimm fairy tales. I think I've read enough to say, hey, I think I like the stories that are in Ovid's Metamorphoses. Call me fucking crazy, alright? I've read 4 books. There's like 7. So I've read 28 stories, alright? Cut me some slack, alright? The sandwich is a potbelly pizza melt. Hang on a second. The lighting is really good right now. Let's see. This is what I mean by I'm going through a metamorphosis of my own, you guys. All right, hang on. Look at. Ooh, you see that? You see that? I am down 30 pounds from my heaviest. All right, we do metamorphoses of our own here. Okay. Yes. Ugh. Icarus, Daedalus, soaring so high that you fucking burn your wings. It's about living in moderation, because if you also go too close to the sea, it's going to get your wings wet and they'll break there too. I know ball. If I was to rearrange my reading order of how I did all the stories in the classical epic section, it was basically all Greek and Roman stuff. I would go Ovid Metamorphoses first. Then I would go to the Iliad, the Aeneid, and then I would finish with the Odyssey. I think that's what I would do. Like Metamorphoses, it gives you the good foundation, right? It gives you a really good foundation. Then the Iliad, you see that play out in Homer's words, right? In Homer's way of how he does everything, which is always very interesting. And then you get the Aeneid, which I haven't read yet, so I'm speaking as what I know about the text, is by Virgil, and it is essentially a fan fiction of a character from the Iliad, Aeneas, and it is his journey, and then that way you get the back-to-back journey section. So, you know what? I might need to make a video about Aeneas versus Odysseus as like who would win in a fight, because that just sounds sick. All right, and with the Odyssey movie coming out, that might be something you'd want to do if you really want to get into the mythology before that releases. Yeah, I don't know. I just talk on these things now. I don't think too much about it. You know, I made that one short about how there are basically like two very famous stories with basically the same name. But the more I think about it, the more Kafka probably based it off of Metamorphoses by Ovid or Ovid. Because I'm thinking about it, right? There's a lot of body horror elements in Ovid's Metamorphoses. Like, there's a decent amount of body horror. So I think that could definitely have translated into the story that came much later. Especially considering that where he turns into like a beetle, you know? Turning into a beetle would suck, bro. It would suck. You wake up and you're just like, wow, I gotta get to work. Like, bro, get the fuck out of here. You got bigger problems to deal with, you know? Like, first off, don't be a beetle. Why'd you do that? And then, second off, well, you know what? He must have done something to annoy the gods because, like, everybody in Ovid's Metamorphoses, like, say what you will, Ovid rewrote a lot of the oral Greek traditions and then Romanized. He really didn't like the Romans at the time or something, so he, like, made them, like, a lot meaner. And apparently that is really because he's the primary written source nowadays for how these things happen. But he's the main guy that's so, like, a lot of stuff that's like, oh yeah, Greek gods are actually huge jerks. Not for the Greeks. No, they love those guys. They worship to them. Come on. It was Ovid that, like, had his own, like, perceptions on what the Romans is. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna bastardize the Roman stories. I don't know. You know, none of it could be true, and I would have no clue. I'd be none the wiser. I'm just excited to get to the medieval epics at this point because Le Morte d'Arthur seems like it's going to be really cool, you know? I've got some personal stake in that. I'm not going to talk about it, but, like, whatever the fuck, you know? But I'm excited. The sandwich is spicy, man. I got hot peppers on it. I forgot how hot the hot peppers actually were. I remember when I worked there, I'd be in the back. We would all just be eating them to try to up our spice tolerance, because sometimes they'd be spicy, sometimes they wouldn't. But then, like, you know, it worked. And now I haven't been doing that, and then, gosh, these are hot again. Maybe log that in as another Metamorphoses that, like, I don't no longer have the good spice tolerance, because, like, anything that changes in this book is called the Metamorphosis. It's a little... I'm tired of saying the word metamorphosis, man. I'm tired of it. Also, the other thing is, I miss reading religious texts. When I was reading and listening to the Bible, like, I had this weight behind me, you know? Like, it had this, you know, it had aura, you know? It had plus 1,000 aura, the Bible. Now I read some of these other epics, and I'm like, yeah, they got aura, but, like, not nearly that much. But, like, I wonder if I were, like, open up the Talmud or, like, the Quran. I'm like, does this have aura? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I need to give everything I give a letter grade, and, like, if it has plus or minus aura. Because that would be pretty solid. But on what I would give Metamorphoses on a letter grade, you know, it's pretty good. Every time I think about it, I'm, like, happy. And I think about all the good stories I read. You know what? I'd give Ovid's Metamorphoses, I'd give it an A-. Like, I'm going to move on to reading other things, but, like, this book is going to be in the back of my head, like, if I ever want a quick story. Or, like, just to, like, you know, like, maybe, like, a reading warm-up. You know, like, read a short story before you go back into your novel. Or, like, write a short story before you go back to writing your novel. Like, I'm gonna keep on this one. Because I like it, but not so sure how soon I'll finish it. Because I want to get to Virgil. I want to get to the Aeneid. That fascinates me. It's been a while since, like, I feel like I had a focused story with, like, you know, main characters, supporting characters. Wuthering Heights, I'm not a girl. Okay, what do you want from me? Do you see my channel? Do you see what I do on here? Do you think I would be the kind of guy to like Wuthering Heights? I mean, maybe if I give it a fair shot, but like I don't want to give it a fair shot. I have so much more I want to read. It's stupid. This is just stupid, you know. All right. Peace out. I'm gonna give. I'll give it an A minus. A minus feels right for Ovid's Metamorphoses. It's just I'm tired of it. I gotta read something new pretty quickly. All right. Yeah. A minus. Ovid Metamorphoses. See ya.